Hello friends, in this video we are going to discover the top 10 most dangerous cities in Europe. Europe is known for being a generally safe place to travel. Most countries in Europe have fewer gun-related crimes in a year than America has in a day. However, foreigners should avoid some places in Europe or at least be extra careful while visiting. The places on this list are known for murders, robbing, pickpocketing, and even violence targeted specifically towards tourists. Here are the 10 most dangerous cities in Europe and why you should avoid them. Kindly make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon before we start this video about the 10 most dangerous cities in Europe. Now let's dig deeper into each of the top 10 most dangerous cities in Europe. Number 10. Istanbul, Turkey. I don't know why Turkey gets such a bad rap when it comes to dangerous European cities. My wife and I lived in Turkey for 3 months and have never felt safer and more welcomed by a community. We stayed in southern Turkey, but we've also heard amazing things about Istanbul. Istanbul is the largest city in Turkey and lies on the border of Asia and Europe. Like any of the bigger cities on this list, stay out of tourist areas after dark, beware of purse snatchers, and keep a close eye on your valuables, and you'll be safe. Also, Tarlabaşı is a neighborhood in Istanbul that is one of the poorest places, so try to avoid this area if possible. Number 9. Amsterdam, Netherlands. We loved it when my wife and I traveled to Amsterdam in 2019. We stayed in a little hostel outside the city and biked into the main city every morning for a day of sightseeing and fun. Fast forward to 2024, and it's a completely different story. There's trash everywhere, homeless people cover the streets, and it just doesn't feel like it used to. Some of the most common crimes in Amsterdam are getting your bike stolen, it is the bike capital of the world, and getting pickpocketed. There are occasions when crime is taken too far and tourists end up getting stabbed in places like the red light district, so just don't walk around with anything too expensive in super touristy areas. Number 8. Athens, Greece. When I traveled to Athens back in 2022, it felt very similar to Naples. The streets are pretty dirty, there are some pretty sketchy-looking people wandering the streets, and the food is incredible. Like all capital cities in Europe, pickpocketing and tourist scams run rampant here. Just make sure you are keeping an eye on your valuables, especially near tourist spots, and you should be okay. There's also a problem with drug dealing and drug use in Athens, so stay away from the outskirts of the city. Another common scam is the taxi scam. I've never been scammed in a taxi, no matter where I am in the world. Athens taxi drivers have one of the lowest taxi rates in all of Europe, meaning tourists are at risk of being scammed every time they walk into a taxi. Number 7. Malmo, Sweden. For some reason, the number of gun-related deaths in Sweden is rapidly increasing year after year. Malmo is known for its gang-related crimes, especially gun violence. Sweden has the second highest homicide rate in Europe, with about 0.4 deaths per 100,000 people, so about a fourth of the amount in Albania. Malmo is known as the crime capital of Sweden and has the highest number of rapes and violent crimes. Many say that the gangs are to blame for this, but the truth is, it's most likely a result of increasing poverty in the area. The wealth gap in Sweden is one of the largest in the world, putting its citizens in increasingly desperate positions. Number 6. Vlora, Albania. The country of Albania has the highest number of gun-related deaths per year in all of Europe, averaging 1.7 deaths per 100,000 people. It more than triples the second highest gun-related deaths per 100,000 people in Europe, which we'll get to next. Because of this, Albania has been cracking down on gun control by making guns harder to get. This has led to a 50% decrease in homicides in Albania from 2014 to 2022, with that number continuing to drop yearly. Vlora has had a record number of crimes, with over 4,500 reported in 2021, most of which were petty crimes against locals. Visitors to the city have said that they feel pretty safe here, especially during the day. Number 5. Montpellier, France. Who knew that France was such a dangerous place? Well, it's dangerous by European standards. Montpellier has a poverty rate of 27%, double France's national average. This means that people are likelier to do desperate things to get money. According to Numbeo, Montpellier's crime index is moderately high at 62 out of 100, with 100 being the most dangerous. If you compare that to the safety in Lille or Strasbourg, that's much higher. The most common crimes committed here are burglaries and robberies that mostly happen at night. This is one of the largest cities in France, so like all major cities, try to be home by dark and don't do any sketchy dealings, and you should be fine. Number 4. Naples, Italy. Naples is another port city and is one of the saddest cities I've visited in Europe. There are homeless people everywhere and literal trash tornadoes that go through the city. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how filthy of a city it is. I've also visited this city about 5 times, and even with all of its danger and filth, it's still one of my favorite cities in Europe. I mean, it's the birthplace of pizza. How could you not love it? As it is relevant to tourists, compared to the rest of Italy, yes, the rates of robbery tend to be higher in Naples, but on almost all other relevant metrics it's lower risk than most other parts of Italy. Compared to the US, the rates of robbery in Naples are about on par with that of a major US city. The major crimes that affect Naples are mafia-related crimes such as drugs, drug dealing, and murders related to drugs. There's also a lot of petty theft, like pickpocketing, mainly occurring near crowded tourist spots. Like Marseille, just try to be inside by the time the sun has set, and you'll be okay. Number 3. Birmingham, UK. This city is just a few hours outside London but is much more dangerous. Birmingham used to be the most dangerous city in Western Europe, but with Bradford's rising crime rate, it couldn't keep up, but it is close. The number of homicides has more than doubled in the past 10 years, from 65 to 150, and the number continues to rise each year. Annual crime rate in Birmingham postcode area is 48.3 crimes per 1,000 people. Compared to the national crime rate, Birmingham's rate is at 136% as of June 2024. Violent crime makes up 40% of all crimes reported in the postcode area. The most common crime here is burglary, and the shoplifting rate is almost double that of the rest of the UK. One famous person from here is Ozzy Osbourne, if that gives you any clue about the kind of people who live here. Number 2. Marseille, France. I've been to Marseille probably 5 times since visiting France. It's just a couple of hours from Nice, where I stayed, and is a much larger city. It has the second highest crime rate in Europe, with 45 murders happening last year alone. Marseille is a port town, which means that it's fairly easy to traffic drugs through this city, which has led to it being taken over by mafias, drug dealers, and drug users. Criminal gang violence in Marseille, particularly gun violence, appears to be worsening. The risk such violence poses to business travelers generally remains low, although it seems to be rising slightly. A few bystanders have been killed this year. But these appeared inadvertent rather than opportunistic targeting of non-gang members. Police officials indicate that a feud between 2 drug gangs is driving most of this violence. Based on that, and the locations of gang activity, such crimes are likely to largely continue to occur in low-income areas of the city, away from areas frequented by tourists and business people. If you plan on staying here, try to avoid going out at night. During the day, my wife and I felt pretty safe and even walked around with a DSLR camera. Marseille is also a great place to base yourself to see the surrounding area, like the Calanques and the Verdun Gorge. Just make sure to get back before dark. Number 1. Bradford, UK. This city has the highest crime rate in all of Western Europe. Bradford is located in the center of the UK just outside the city of Leeds. Most of the crimes that are committed here are violent crimes, making the violent crime rate in Bradford twice as high as the average violent crime for the rest of the UK. The annual crime rate in Bradford postcode area is 61.2 crimes per 1,000 people. Compared to the national crime rate, Bradford's rate is at 173% as of June 2024. Violent crime makes up 43.1% of all crimes reported in the postcode area. Most of the attacks that are happening here are robberies and assaults. This town used to be a mill town with a huge textile industry. However, since the mills have shut down, it has become one of the most impoverished areas in all the UK. Crime is continuing to increase here each year, so whatever you do, don't plan your next trip to Bradford. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, click the subscribe button so you can receive more content like this. Post your thoughts on the dangerous cities among the top 10 most dangerous cities in Europe in the comments below. I'd love to read them and I'm sure others would too.